You get the sense that, in fact, year after year, country after country, there are several attacks against Muslims and Islam. And you will find a list of topics that are used and presented as the problematic presence of Muslims in the West. Remember, in the late 80s, you had this first controversy about the headscarf in France. And then we had another controversy and we had lots of discussion, not only in France, but in other European countries, because we thought, in fact, that the other European countries were going to prevent, or at least resist, the French attempt to ban the headscarf in schools. And in fact, it's exactly opposite which happened. Is in fact France which has influenced the other European countries. After this, we had the cartoon controversy, we had the minarets in Switzerland. And it's not a question of number, it's not a question of being too visible. In fact, in Switzerland, we had only 4 minarets when they started the whole controversy. And the party, the Swiss People Party, when they wanted to launch this campaign against the minarets, at the beginning they didn't decide that it should be against the minarets. They wanted to do something against the Muslims, and they were thinking about slaughtering, saying it's against the rights of animals. And they had internal discussions in the Swiss People Party, and they decided, no, if we go against slaughtering, we are going to face the Jewish tradition, because they have exactly the same practices. So we should find something, choose something which is especially against the Muslims, and they went for the minarets. And it worked. With 4 minarets in the country, they were saying the minarets are the symbol of the Muslim colonization of the country. And in fact, there is a list of topics, and then we had another controversy, which was about homosexuality in the Netherlands. And we had, after this, another controversy, which was about the very essence of Sharia. Remember the Archbishop of Canterbury in the UK? When he was saying that, in fact, with the Muslim presence in the country, it's normal to allocate to Muslims spaces and rights according to, and he used the word, and this was in the media the dirty word. He said Sharia. The point is that the Archbishop is very knowledgeable. He knows about Islam. He read about Islam. And he was talking about the very meaning of Sharia. It's the Islamic reference, not as the penal code, as it is reduced in some of the media, and some even, not, by the way, it's not only a media business. It's also the same thing that we find again among intellectuals and so-called scholars. When they speak about Sharia, they speak about a very narrow understanding of the penal code. And they call themselves specialists of Islam. But they are using this and the lawyer term to say, be careful. The Muslims, when they come, they don't come only with prayers and mosques. They come with legislation. And in fact, behind the scene, what they want is to colonize the country where they live. So the Sharia, and because he used this word for the following 2 weeks in the UK, we had a controversy. Look at the Archbishop of Canterbury advocating Sharia for the Muslims, meaning he wants for the Muslims a parallel system. While the Archbishop of Canterbury was not saying this, he was saying, in the name of the British law, it's right to give the Muslims the rights to give to others. But when the Muslims are asking for the same rights as the others, it's as if they're asking for special rights. So equality for them means to ask for specific rights. They don't want to be like the others. And in fact, the Archbishop was saying exactly the opposite. He was saying, I want equality for them, it was heard, he is advocating specific rights for them. Why? Because in fact the very essence of the problem is twofold. Is first, ignorance of Sharia. And by the way, when I'm saying ignorance of Sharia, it's also coming from Muslims. A few weeks ago, in fact 2 months ago, I was visiting the States, and I heard, of course, about the 18 states, claiming and have people from the Tea Parties and the Conservative acting against, Sharia and on bills against Sharia. And I even read a booklet about Sharia, full of mistakes. It's just unbelievable that this could be a booklet which is published, say, this is Sharia, it's very dangerous. And it's very dangerous because it's full of mistakes with some right things with it. So it's not completely wrong. It's wrong with some truth with it, which is the most dangerous. The more intelligent liars are the people who can mix lies and truth. You know that this is a strategy. So I was asking the Muslims, what is your response to this? What are you going to say about it? And how are you going to present Sharia to the people? And I'm sorry to tell you that the answers I got were worrying, because it showed the very superficial knowledge of Muslims about their own tradition. So how are you going to respond to such attacks if you yourself don't have a clear understanding of your religion? And you yourself, sometimes some Muslims are scared to use the concept of Sharia, because they themselves, they don't know what they are talking about. And I even heard ex-Muslims, so-called ex-Muslims. When Muslims, they left the religion, and I'm always saying to these ex-Muslims, why are you calling yourself ex-Muslims? Tell you who you are now, not who you were before. We don't care about the fact that you were Muslims. Tell us who you are now and for whom you are working. That's better. It's clear. So they are saying anyone who is using the concept of Sharia is dangerous, because Sharia is the concept that is used by Islamists. So they are reducing the concept to some groups that are Islamists, and for the great majority of the ordinary people, Islamists are extremists. So, and you also have so-called moderate Muslims. And we had someone in Germany saying, the very moment you find a Muslim referring to Sharia, you know that he's an Islamist. And he's preaching like this, so it's coming from within our community. And we should not underestimate the impact of such voices coming from within and speaking in such a way. So we should be careful not to let these people, these intellectuals are so-called scholars, speak on our behalf. We need to be vocal, and we need to be assertive with our terminology, our translations, and our references. And this is your job. It's not only going to come from scholars or leaders, it's coming from the Muslims. We need to get the basic knowledge of what our religion is all about, and to get a better understanding. So we are under attack, and we all know this. The perception of Islam is negative. It's mainly negative. You know, when French people were asked about Islam, 75% of the French are connecting the very word of Islam to violence. Now, 10 years after September 11th, in your country, 72% of the Americans think that the Muslim presence in this country is worrying. They don't know exactly what they can say about it. But okay. So I think here that it's important to get to understand that, and to understand at the same time that this negative perception of Islam, it's not only negative for people of other faiths, it's also negative for Muslims because it has an impact. If you feel that the people around you, they have a superficial knowledge, negative perception, at the end of the day, the psychological atmosphere is negative, and has an impact on you. And this is basic psychology. The more you convince the people that there is something negative in this presence, the more the people are influenced. Without words, it's the non-verbal influence. And you feel this with Muslims, that there is something. So some are going to shy away, some are going to be discreet, some are going to just avoid showing that they are Muslims. It creates an atmosphere which is negative. And we need to get this, we need to understand that. And this is what I keep on repeating. You know, some of these campaigns are not here to succeed, meaning by this that they will get the law against Sharia. But it means that, in fact, by talking about it, they are spreading around the negative atmosphere. So the point is not the success, the point is the atmosphere, the climate within which you live, knowing that, oh, there is a danger over there. So they might, sometimes they are going to win, but they might lose when it comes to the legislation or the American Constitution. But they are not going to lose with the campaigns, and having Fox News and others talking about it will create something. So at the end, it's not going to be a legal success, but it's going to be a psychological success. So be careful, the psychological success is necessary when you want to go for the next election. The legal success, that's fine, but psychological success is success in politics. So we need to get that. We need to get that it's very deep. They are working on minds and hearts and guts and something which is very deep, that you are not dealing only with rational discussion. It's irrational. So how are we going to do that? The first dimension for me, it's really this confidence which is needed as Muslims. And the dimension here is this knowledge of what Sharia is. So, you know, our scholars, and some of our scholars, when they were working within fiqh, Islamic law and jurisprudence, they are specialists in fiqh. For them, it's quite clear that their field is to understand Sharia is Islamic law, or God's law, as some were putting it. And in fact, they are speaking from their very specific field. They are dealing with law. Sharia is the sacred law. But if you come to the very deep understanding of Sharia beyond this specialized field, you get it in a more comprehensive way. Why? Because law is one part of the Islamic teaching. Law are setting the limits, but Islam is the way. In order to understand the limits, you need to go to know where you are heading, what kind of objectives. So this is why the scholars from Usul al-Fiqh were saying Usul al-Fiqh, the fundamentals of Islamic law and jurisprudence, is and our oldest usul are the philosophy of law. You don't only need law, you need a philosophy of law. And it means to get the principles that you are extracting from the Quran, you need the way, which is the path of faithfulness. How are you going to be faithful to this? And then what are the objectives? What do you want? The law should be understood in the light of the objectives. And Sharia is which objectives you want to reach with which law. So this is something which is a comprehensive system. It's not only laws that are absolute and irrational because they are coming from God. This is wrong. This is a wrong understanding. And if you come as Muslims and you say this to Christians, and you say this even to yourself, you are misleading the people. Because it means for many people, oh, you read the Quran, you take the law, you don't use your mind, and this is Sharia. And more importantly, you are going to do this with punishment, because this is the way it is in your religion. That's wrong. We need to come with something which is deeper than that, is what are the objectives? And there is a way. And in fact, when you come back to the Quran, ثُمَّ جَعَلْنَاكَ عَلَى شَرِيعَةٍ مِنَ الْأَمْرِ فَاتَّبِعْهَا
We put you as Sharia, which is a way in the religious matter, follow it. You have to follow a way. And to follow a way means know the objectives, and in the light of the objectives, implement the law. Implement the law. The law should be understood in the light of the objectives. And in Ilna, it's not new, by the way, when I'm talking like this, I'm not modernizing Islam. It's as old as Islam. The first scholars, when they were trying to understand the law, they were trying to understand Ilna, the raison d'être. Why this law? And when you come to Surah Taha, you start with even your prayer. Your prayer, you are praying for a reason. When Allah is talking to Musa alayhi salam, He's telling him, وَأَقِمِ الصَّلَاةَ لِذِكْرِ. So you pray, and the objective of your prayer is to remember me. So there is an objective. So you need to understand that anything that you are doing in Islam should be done in the light of the objectives that you want to reach, and the laws and the limits are based on this. So for us, when we speak about Sharia, there are two things that we have to remember. And I wrote this was almost now 70 years ago. When I was writing on the situation of Muslims in the West, I said there are two words that we have to understand. The first one is, what is the word that we are using in Islam to become a Muslim? Is a shahada. We say the shahada, أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. We say the shahada, and then the very moment we say the shahada, we enter the Sharia. The Sharia is the way to remain a Muslim. You say the shahada to enter, and you follow the Sharia to remain. This is it. Shahada to be, Sharia to remain on the path, to try to reach the objective. So this is the comprehensiveness. How do we have to deal with this? The Sharia is the very moment you say La ilaha illallah and you are practicing your religion, you are implementing a Sharia. So don't try to avoid the word. It's as if, the people who want us to avoid the word jihad in Islam, jihad is the heart of Islam. If we understand the very meaning of jihad, which is not the way towards war, it's the way towards peace. Jihad is the heart of our religion. No Sharia without jihad, no jihad without Sharia. Why? Because you need jihad to implement Sharia in order to resist the bad and to command the good. This is our religion. So instead of following some of these attacks and being scared, avoiding the words, we need to reassess the meaning of our terminology as Muslims and to get a better understanding. So when you pray, when you build the mosque, when you are praying, when you are fasting, in 2 weeks you are going to fast. This is the implementation of Sharia. You are implementing Sharia in the United States of America when you pray, when you fast, when you say before eating, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, this is your Sharia. Right? Why? Because this is the way you remain faithful to this Islamic message. It's not the penal code, it's everything when you do it in the light of remembering Allah, remembering God. This is Sharia. So the very moment you can say, La ilaha illallah, you can practice, this is something which is important. More than that, Sharia doesn't start when it's visible. The spiritual life of Islam, the fact that you pray, the fact that a dhikr, for example, a dhikr that you say, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Allahu Akbar. What was said now? Say Allahu Akbar. I don't like to use Allahu Akbar like a slogan, by the way. I like it to be a way of meditation. Anyone who is meditating the presence of Allah in the herb of his life is implementing Sharia. This is the Sharia of the heart. طبق الشريعة في قلبك. So you have to implement the Sharia in your heart. What does it mean? To remember Allah, to remember the meaning of your love, to remember the meaning of your life, to remember the meaning of your service. Sharia is all this. So when you ask Allah, you are part of the Sharia. So we need to get this comprehensive system where we are dealing with it. So we are dealing with Allah, and then it starts with the heart, it is built with the mind, and then it has to be shown with our practice, with our behavior in our life. Now, there is a second point which is important. So once again, when someone is